another twist in Thailand's political history.
It's a sure sign that once again New Zealand is punching above its weight.
Locals are hoping for a cool change soon.
From Washington,
London,
Jerusalem,
New Delhi,
Beijing,
Bangkok,
Tokyo,
Perth, Darwin,
Alice Springs,
Rockhampton,
Brisbane,
Sydney,
Canberra,
Melbourne,
Adelaide,
Hobart.
Reporting for ABC News 24.
Is Al Jazeera.
Hello and welcome to the Newshour. I'm Martine Dennis in Doha and these are our top stories. Hong Kong police used tear gas and pepper spray to disperse thousands of pro-democracy protesters. But first, police in Hong Kong have used tear gas for the first time during a protest which began a week ago. We can see the scene there live in Hong Kong. Thousands of protesters, you can see there, are still gathered on the streets. They're largely congregating outside main government buildings, and they want political reform. They want the Chinese government to scrap rules allowing it to choose which candidates would actually run in the 2017 election. We have this report now from Rob McBride.
As more police reinforcements arrived, it was clear they were being hopelessly outnumbered by demonstrators. A growing crush of people trying to find their way back into the occupation site blocked. Tempers flared and everyone knew what was coming. Umbrellas went up to block the pepper spray and the pouring started. The umbrella wall ripped apart and then the spray, but to no avail. The line was breached, officers down and hurt. Both sides appealing for restraint to pull them out of the crush. But by now the crowd had moved on, and so had events. From across the highway, more protesters from the occupation site now saw the moment, racing across the lanes and urging others on this side to do the same. They met in the middle, and the occupation just got bigger.
This began as an attempt by the authorities to contain the occupation within a certain area. It's now ended up with the protesters virtually taking over the whole centre of the city.
Now it was the protesters in charge of the traffic, at this moment arguably in charge of this city's fate.
It's just a new day for Hong Kong. Because this civil disobedience is unprecedented. But today we really did something that we are proud of. Yeah.
For the Hong Kong authorities, this day started as a crisis. At the end of it, it still was, but now one for Beijing as well. Rob McBride, Al Jazeera, Hong Kong.
Well, these protests began after the Chinese government announced that candidates for the 2017 elections will require approval from a nominating committee. But protesters from the Occupy Central movement insist that they should be able to choose their next leader. Now, they want Beijing to scrap the rules in place for the 2017 election. They're saying that city leaders have failed to deliver on political reform, and they want to resume public consultations on democratic reforms. Well, excuse me, we can hear more now from some of those people who are actually demanding change.
It's because fighting is the only thing we can do. We have no power. We either choose to be cowards or citizens in a free society. If you don't want to be a coward as a Hong Kong citizen, you should come out and step up.
The message is Hong Kong people love democracy. They believe democracy is good for Hong Kong and certainly good for China. And they are prepared to sacrifice their comfort, their freedom, for the sake of themselves and their children and their children's children.
Hello again, these are the top stories here at Al Jazeera. It's the middle of the night in Hong Kong, and people have been involved in more clashes with the police. These protesters are pro-democracy. They're demanding greater political freedom from China's Communist Party leaders. Well, more now on the situation in Hong Kong, which is ongoing. As we say, it's 2:30 in the morning right now. And as you can see from this shot, which is live, you can see that people are actually digging in their heels. They're camping out for the night. There are fears, therefore, that the police will try to clear these people before the start of the working week. Now, that's on Monday morning, which is only a few hours from now. Scott Heidler explains.
Well into the night, still tens of thousands of protesters here in the center part of Hong Kong. Now, this is something that's evolved here on Sunday. It started earlier in the day, numbers started growing. There were some confrontations, pepper spray was used. A lot of the protesters used those umbrellas to repel that. They used gas masks and protective wear on their eyes. But that continued throughout the day. But something in the late afternoon we saw for the very first time, the use of tear gas by the police. Now, it started first in this area where we are here, and then it really kind of pushed a lot of the protesters down that channel and a lot left, but then a lot more came back. But around that time, just before that happened, it's very interesting, the father of the democratic movement here in Hong Kong came and saw some of these protesters just before that tear gas was fired. When you say that you're winning, what do you mean by the movement's winning?
Well, the people power. The police try to block them unsuccessfully, but then they're so calm, they're so peaceful. And we've been saying that this is a movement of peace and love. Kevin.
And then in the early evening, something we hadn't seen before. In most cases, you saw their confrontation, the protesters being pushed back by the tear gas or the pepper spray. But on one of these bridges here in the center part again of Hong Kong, we saw something that was very interesting. A lot of the protesters had sat down right in the middle of this walkway. And the police with riot gear were coming up, and then there was a bit of a standoff. And what we've seen several times around this area, you know, where the government complex is, the police unfurled this sign that said, "Police line, do not cross." When that happened, a big cheer went up, and this confrontation actually ended with the police backing down. They walked back down that bridgeway. So what's going to be interesting in the coming hours, this is the center part of this city, big financial industry, big banking industry here. What's going to happen Monday morning when tens of thousands of protesters are still out here? What is the police going to do in the coming hours, and what is Monday morning going to look like?